Welcome back. Senator Ralph Babet has gone viral this week. That's the term for something catching a heck of a lot of attention on the internet. Let's find out what it's all about by talking to the man himself. Senator, thanks so much for joining me on Bernardi. You did an interview which didn't quite break the internet, but it certainly caused a bit of a splash. Now, tell us more about it.
Well, Corey, I have received quite a bit of attention over in some parts of Europe. Now, Corey, isn't it funny that I receive attention overseas, but yet the establishment media here in Australia has not said a single thing, of course, with the exception of Mr. Cory Bernardi. Now, all I said in a recent podcast was that Australia should, at the very least, be taking a neutral approach to the war in Ukraine. But why? Quite a few reasons. First of all, our nation is in a cost of living crisis, and we're experiencing quite possibly the worst housing affordability, at least in my lifetime, in decades. Hospitals need funding, and there are people literally living in their cars. So instead of helping suffering Australians here at home, our government has already given around $800 million to help ensure that the war continues over in the Ukraine. Now, more alarming than that are the recent estimates that there have been about 500,000 people injured or killed in this conflict. And we know that there is no end in sight. Now, Corey, I believe that it's about time that we start asking the big questions. And many quiet Australians, they agree with me. Questions like this. What responsibility does NATO and the European Union hold in this conflict? As we know, NATO has been pushing into former Soviet territory. And Corey, if the Ukraine was to join NATO, would this mean a militarized border with NATO troops? And who stands to benefit once this war is done and Ukraine and Russia are both exhausted? Now imagine this, a situation where Papua New Guinea enters into a military alliance with communist China and then allows them to establish military bases right along their southern border, just kilometres from Australia. Would we tolerate it? Now, this war is not as clear-cut as the establishment media and the warmongers, which what they are, the warmongers, would have us believe. Now, I think that Vivek Ramaswamy, a US Republican presidential candidate, has started a worthwhile conversation with what he describes as the Putin Pact. Now, he has proposed the ceding of territory taken by Russia in eastern Ukraine in return for Moscow exiting its military alliance with China. He would also block Ukraine's candidacy to NATO and end US sanctions on Russia. That's what he'd do. Now, we need to ask ourselves this question. Is this war in Ukraine pushing Russia into the arms of China? Now, personally, this is what I believe. I believe that a less than ideal peace is better than war. We should do everything we can to prevent and to end this war. Now, as a federal senator, I'm asking questions, but I'm in the absolute minority of elected members. Where are the left on this issue? What has happened to them? Where is Adam Bandt? Where is Anthony Albanese? Where are the hippies with flowers in their hair, up in arms, protesting war and asking for peace? The left has sold their souls to the globalists. And it's not just the big war machine, Corey. It's big pharma and it's big food. They have captured the left. Why? Because they have deep pockets, Corey. That's why.
It's incredible, Senator. So few people are looking for an off-ramp in this. Kissinger started the conversation. I've been saying this is crazy to think that Russia are just going to withdraw. If they'd honoured the Minsk Accord and the agreement to have a vote, we probably wouldn't be in this situation. And no one, or very few, seem to be concerned about escalation in this war. It's crazy. Good on you for speaking up. Now, I don't know what kind of car you drive or actually where you live in Victoria. I don't need to, but there's been a spate of attacks on the tractors of Toorak. The climate zealots have been letting down the tyres of four-wheel drives in this salubrious Victorian suburb. Now, is it any coincidence, Senator, that this happens after Greens leader Adam Bandt encourages people to commit criminal acts to push climate policy? Have a listen to him this week.
The more new coal and gas projects that Labor keeps opening, the more civil disobedience there's going to be.
Civil disobedience, that's what we're seeing here, Senator. It's just not on, is it?
It's absolutely not. And you know what, Corey? You've just found the hippies with the flowers in their hair. You've found them. There you go. Except one thing. They're not fighting to end the war. No, they're not. But you know what they are now? They are knife-wielding tyre vandals. That's what they are. These so-called eco-warriors, well, you know what? They're not too bright, are they, Corey? Now, I'm certainly not worried about carbon emissions myself. But if you were, don't you think you do your research? Now, their solution to apparent rising carbon emissions involves letting down and slashing tyres. Now, this act then leads to the creation of more carbon emissions because you've got to dispose of the old tyre and purchase a brand new tyre. And you know what? They probably drove around the suburbs in Melbourne in their gas guzzlers while they seeked out their targets. They are hypocrites. You know what? Adam Bandt, he deserves the credit for this. He's the one that has obviously given the green light to these eco-terrorists by promoting civil disobedience. Now, Mr. Bandt, you know what he does? He parades as a green, but deep down, you know what he is? He's a watermelon. He's green on the outside, but he's red on the inside. Now, I've got some simple words of advice for these poor, deleted eco-terrorists, which is what I'm going to call them. Instead of slashing tyres, do something productive, mate. Plant a tree. Grow your own food, or at the very least, help me raise awareness on the abhorrent child slave labor being used in the cobalt mines right now in the Congo. That cobalt is then used in electric car batteries and in solar panels, which are made in China by, you guessed it, slave labor. Long live the Toorak tractor, Corey.
Long live the Toorak tractor. Hey, Senator, I wanted to ask you about housing affordability, and you're based on your experience in the real estate industry, but I am out of time. We will cover that another time here on Bernardi. You enjoy your week in Parliament and do good work for the people of Australia.
Yeah, that's my kind of party. The United Australia Party. So sound the starting gun. You know we've just begun.